Commercial real estate videos are brought to you by Bull Realty. When your business requires proven performance, contact Bull Realty. And by Arnold Golden Gregory, France Media Inc., Resnick Group, and Andy's Army. Welcome to America's Commercial Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us to lead, learn, and laugh. Learn market knowledge and best practices to lead your company to success. And that's whatever type of company you work for. And laugh, I think we have to have some fun along the way. Well, hello, I'm Michael Bull, your host of the world of commercial real estate. Thanks for joining us. Remember, if you have any questions related to this show or about any commercial real estate related topic, we'd love to hear from you. Our phone number is 888-612-SHOW. You can find all our contact information and our social media sites at commercialrealestateshow.com. Well, today our topic is corporate office tenant strategies. You know, the economy, the job market, and the way we work has changed more in the past few years than ever before. And so have office use strategies of corporate America. Today we have the pleasure to talk to some of the leading office tenant reps in the country. We'll explore how the most successful companies are adjusting their office use strategies. Please welcome my first guest, Scott Panzer, Vice Chairman, Jones Lang LaSalle. Scott works in the New York office. He has completed over 28 million square feet of assignments and was JLL's Global MVP, Most Valuable Player for 2011. Scott, welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Show.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning.
Well, great. I'm glad to have you. And most valuable player, that's impressive. I think last time I was most valuable player, I was in the 8th grade or something. I don't know.
When I was in the 8th grade, I think I was still 3'8", so I haven't grown much since then. But having an MVP award of one of the major global real estate players is definitely a good accolade.
That was very impressive. And let's talk about the strategies a little bit. You know, what are some of the latest strategies and trends for office tenants that you see out there today?
Well, you know, the interesting thing is that it's not just really office tenants, but the world is changing. So most of the world is trying to now cater to the Gen Y or the millennial community, and that whole, you know, caliber of people are really just communicating via telecommuting, internet access, and a variety of other mediums, which is really less on the day-to-day face-to-face component. So what we're seeing is a tremendous push towards more space compression, more open collaborative space. They're looking at having, you know, offices, if they're going to have any, there'll be very few, and most of them are going to be inbound on the core of a building, and all the workstations are all going to be low workstations, probably not much more than 42 inches high. And the real focus is to get that collaborative environment. The other thing we're seeing is a big push towards telecommuting. And again, if you've got kids, like I do, most of their interaction with their friends is on their iPad or on their computer, and they don't have to be sitting in the room to be interacting with them or conversing with them or doing business with them. And I think that's where the world's being pushed towards now.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think they communicate more with text than anything else these days. But how is that affecting office design and construction, Scott?
So effectively what happens, as I alluded to earlier, we're starting to see much more open plan space. We're starting to see a better use of side core buildings because they're looking for that big open plan. And when I represented Bloomberg on their corporate headquarters here in New York, that was sort of on the forefront of what was happening. In fact, we used to joke about it, that the fish inside of these big saltwater fish tanks that permeate the Bloomberg offices have more inches per square, inch per fish than people have square feet per person. So
they're spoiled fish, aren't they?
Very spoiled fish.
So you're seeing the square footage per employee drop considerably?
We're seeing an overall push. For example, financial service firms are looking to move from a 250 square foot average down to closer to 205, 210, and we're seeing media and advertising companies moving from a 205 down to the 185 and 190. And then the Googles of the world, they're already in, one person per 100 square feet, depending upon which city you're in.
Right. All right, so if we're a fish, we'll have more room. Okay.
You know what? Sometimes it might be good to be a fish today.
That's right. Well, Scott, we have the upcoming FASB lease accounting changes, which could cause companies to have to put leases on their balance sheet. Are any of the tenants telling you that maybe they're requiring or would like to see shorter leases? Are they changing their plans any? What do you see out there?
I think, I know what we're seeing is that tenants don't know and clients don't know exactly how to approach that. The reality is, if it does go into effect, and it's not been totally certain that it is, but if it does go into effect, essentially what will happen is everything gets remeasured. So everyone's, if you're a public company, all balance sheets get restructured based upon long-term leases. What we have had under FASB in 13 and 27 has always been that 95% rule, which forces a company to capitalize a lease based upon whether it's 95% of the value of a building anyway. So effectively what will happen is companies report long-term leases on their 10Qs and 10Ks in their annual reports, right, as just a long-term obligation. This is just going to be resetting the bar. What we won't see is, I don't think we'll see anyone taking shorter-term leases. If anything, we might see certain companies push to perhaps own property and put it on their balance sheet as opposed to lease it, because the effect is the same.
Yeah, well, that'll be interesting to see how that does affect the lease versus purchase decision for some of these corporations. And what about some other factors that may be playing in corporate decisions? How about the presidential election outcome? Are any of the tenants telling you that the outcome of the election is affecting their decision process about expanding hiring and expanding their business?
Yeah, I can tell you for certain that many companies are very, very concerned about the outcome of the election, both whether it's Obama or Romney's in there, and they're equally concerned about what's going on with the Euro crisis still. There's a real overall stagnation in terms of companies making decisions right now. They're out there exploring, they're kicking tires, they want to have their powder in their gun ready to go, but they're by no means ready to pull the trigger until they see what happens. Obama right now is a very, very scary factor in terms of costs for small and large businesses alike.
Right. Okay. Well, I'd like to know what's going on in your market there in the tri-state or New York area. What's the market like for tenants there?
Well, I mean, I think the good thing is for tenants right now is we've shifted from an equilibrium where sort of it's neutral territory to now more of a push towards the tenant-oriented leverage, and a lot of that has to do with the uncertainty. So landlords don't want to wake up in first quarter of 2013 with space that they haven't rented or space that's coming online that they've got no real market for, especially if Obama stays in. New York has always been a very democratic state, and New York City has always been a very democratic city. But Obama's been attacking New York pretty heavily, and that's going to have some reverberations in terms of decision making.
I see. So what's happening with absorption and occupancy there? What is the trend?
So the trend right now is we're seeing a slight tick up in positive absorption in downtown. Midtown has roughly been flat for about the last 6 or 7 months. It's likely to stay flat for the next 6 or 7 months, and people are starting to focus on 13 and 14 as what's going to happen. Midtown South, which is really the mecca of what's happening in the city, has really been at the lowest loss factor, in fact, nationwide. We're sub 6% loss factor here, which is virtually 100% occupancy when you look at most leasing environments. And that's been fueled by a lot of the tech sector that's really rolled into the city in the last 5 or 6 years. The Googles of the world just keep taking down space at a voracious pace, and that's been offset by the financial services that has sort of been flatlined or giving up space.
I see. Well, let's talk about mistakes or what tenants should do right. So you've helped a lot of tenants. You help a lot of big tenants. What are some of the mistakes that you've seen out there that a tenant should avoid?
I think the biggest mistake that most tenants make is that they underestimate the need for flexibility in their environment. So they're projecting growth over the next 5 years, and they'll look at 10 or 15%, and they'll bite for that space now. And what they know is they don't hedge, they don't protect the downside. So locking in some flexible options for growth and retrenchment has always been a mainstay of my corporate services practice. And what we find is a lot of companies, when we first meet with them and we start working with them, they're going, well, I didn't think we could get that from a landlord. I didn't think we can get that from a landlord. Now they're realizing that in this environment is the time to buy flexibility.
Well, that's because you're beating on these landlords too hard, Scott.
Well, you know what? And when it's skewed the other way, I don't like it just the same.
So none of these tenants are cramming in too tight a space, you don't think? Do you think they are expanding, or they have plans for growth and they have enough room in their space? They're not getting too tight in their space, you think, as the economy recovers?
I think. Well, one, there's a big presumption that the economy is recovering, but I don't see it just yet. But I think what's happening is many of these tenants are going from one set of space, let's say 100,000 square feet, and they'll go into 90,000 square feet at a much tighter footprint, as we discussed earlier in the show, and then they'll cram more people into that footprint until they're out of it, and then hopefully have some expansion options that can take up the slack.
Let's see. All right, before we go, Scott, can you give us a quick tip for office tenants?
Yeah, I think the number one tip is don't hire your friend or your aunt or your ex-mother-in-law. Get the best firm, no matter what city you're in, no matter what place you are in the world. Get the best firm that understands your business model, that understands really how to help you drive value for the future and get you the deal you need.
Oh, that's a good.
And truthfully, that's probably one of the JLL offices worldwide.
Right, there you go. Well, that's a good advice, and they also need to really totally understand the business model, right? And
100%.
Right, and not just look at the real estate, but look at the business. Well, Scott Panzer, thanks for joining us today. We sure appreciate your insight.
Thank you, Phil. Really appreciate this, Michael.
If you'd like more information from Scott, visit JLL.com and just ask for the global most valuable player, right? Or you can find his contact information at commercialrealestateshow.com. We have a lot more intel in store for you in just a moment. I'm Michael Bull, and this is America's Commercial Real Estate Show. We'll be right back.